to go now, as promised, to Sigrid McCawley. She represented Virginia Giuffre in her lawsuits against Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Also, she helped recover $365 million in a class action lawsuit for Epstein victims against two major financial institutions. I mentioned in this context again, Tara Palmieri's reporting that there are 1,000 or more women in these files who were victims of Jeffrey Epstein and others. Now, we heard Virginia Giuffre's family's response to what President Trump said about her. Sigrid, you know, they say it makes us ask if he was aware of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal actions. Now, Sigrid, you have been there in the room and through the testimony, through the documentation relating to Epstein. Would someone like Trump, who was close friends with Epstein for many years, well over a decade, close to two perhaps, have likely been aware of Epstein's lifestyle?
Well, certainly anybody who was operating in that sphere, who was socializing with him, would have seen him with young individuals. I mean, he had, as his House staff testified, up to 3 individual young girls coming into his home every single day. So this was part of his world. This was how he operated. He had a regular stream of young victims that were in his space every single day, whether that was in Florida, in New York, overseas. It was constant. So you have to imagine that anybody who's, you know, spending time with him would have seen those women around Epstein.
And in that context, does Trump's comments to New York Magazine in 2002, when he said, and it said he likes them on the younger side, that's Trump referring to Epstein, does that stand out to you, given what you just said, given what you know, that he would have actually said that?
I think anybody who was around Epstein would have observed those young girls and would have been suspicious that there was something happening. And why did he have all of these very young individuals around him? Why was he parading them around with him on a regular basis? So, and I don't think Trump's the exception there. I think there were many people who he socialized with who frankly turned a blind eye to what was an over 20-year-long sex trafficking operation. And so that's the real injustice here. I mean, there were so many people who knew.
And the real question on that, you know, given how Virginia Giuffre and the depositions, the knowledge of the case, the settlement with Prince Andrew, what happened with the royal family there, right? I mean, Donald Trump knows who she is, okay? So, and he knows that she died by suicide just a few months ago. So when Trump says that he stole, that Epstein stole Virginia Giuffre from the Mar-a-Lago spa, to use that word now with all of that context from Trump, what do you think when you hear that?
I think it was really hard for her family to hear that, obviously. You know, it's a very tender time for them right now. They're, you know, reeling from the loss of their beloved sister, as all of us are, as the survivors are. I mean, she was really at the forefront of calling out Maxwell and Epstein for these crimes. And to be clear, it was not Epstein who recruited Virginia from Mar-a-Lago. It was actually Ghislaine Maxwell. And so I think it's even adding insult to injury that the government is now giving her this microphone to discuss things with them. So I think the family is just facing a lot right now with respect to what's transpiring.
Okay, so you've been in the room with her, right? You deposed her. Right, so everyone else is, you know, it's sort of hearsay. You have been there across the table. You have heard her answer questions. You've actually heard her lie, right? She perjured herself under oath. You have heard her lie when asked direct questions. So now she's making demands to testify before Congress. She wants immunity. She wants the questions in advance. She wants all of these things. My question to you, having sat there and heard her talk, is would her testimony be useful? Would she tell the truth? Would anything come out of this?
Listen, the one thing we know for sure is that Ghislaine Maxwell is a masterful manipulator. She lies without concern, over and over and over again. You can see that in the deposition. I mean, there was not a question she answered truthfully. So it wouldn't make sense to me for someone to give her an audience, because the only thing that she's going to say during those interviews or those meetings are things that will benefit her, and they will not necessarily be truthful. So if it's going to help her, she will use it, but she won't tell the truth. And so that's the real problem here. I mean, where they need to be looking is in Epstein's documents that the estate has, in the files that the government has from the investigation. That's the material that really, documents don't lie. So those are the things that need to be uncovered and disclosed.
So Sigrid, when Trump says about pardoning her, he says, I'm allowed to give her a pardon. Right? The White House says that he's not considering a pardon, but his words when he is asked is, I'm allowed to give her a pardon. So you've been, again, you sat across from her. What does she hear when she hears this?
Well, I mean, those words, when I heard those words, I thought that would be a historic travesty of justice. That would be the absolute worst thing a president on either of any party could ever do. I mean, this is a known child sex abuser. She is finally sitting in prison where she belongs. To do anything to alter that would just be an insult to our justice system, and the gravest kind. I mean, we're meant to protect those young children. And so to erase what has been done would just be, you know, completely horrific. And really a punch in the stomach to all of the thousands of survivors that are still out there. So it just cannot happen. And I think, you know, I hope that the administration takes that very seriously and understands the impact of that.
Sigrid, thank you very much. I'm grateful for your time.
Of course. Thank you.